Daniel's life looked like a dream from the outside. A modern house in a quiet neighborhood, a steady job that paid well, a peaceful routine that most people wished for, and a wife who everyone in their circle admired. Her name was Lisa. Beautiful, polite, always smiling in public. People used to say Daniel was lucky to have her. And honestly, Daniel believed it too. 5 years of marriage had passed, and like every couple, the early excitement had turned into comfort. The kind of comfort where you don't feel the need to question everything. You just trust. You just live. Lisa often spent her mornings at home, doing small chores, cooking, and sometimes going out to the nearby park. She said she liked spending time there because it helped her relax, especially because they didn't have children yet. She would say it softly, almost like she was trying to stay strong about it. Daniel never blamed her. He never pressured her. Instead, he supported her quietly. If Lisa said the park made her happy, then Daniel was happy to. Or at least he thought he was. But life has a strange way of showing truth in small pieces. At first, it was nothing noticeable. Lisa started coming home a little later than usual. Not by much. Maybe 30 minutes. Maybe an hour. She would always smile and say she lost track of time. While talking to friends or walking around, Daniel would nod and believe her. Because why would he doubt his own wife? But then something else changed. Her phone, it was always on silent, always face down. And whenever a message popped up, Lisa would quickly pick it up, read it, and smile in a way she never explained. A soft smile, the kind that wasn't meant for Daniel. One evening, Daniel asked casually while sitting on the couch, "Who keeps texting you so late?" Lisa didn't even look nervous. She just smiled and said, "Oh, just moms from the park. You know how they are, always chatting." And she laughed lightly, like it meant nothing. Daniel nodded again. But for the first time, something inside him didn't feel fully convinced. It wasn't anger, it wasn't suspicion, it was just a small discomfort, a quiet thought that didn't leave his mind. Days passed, then weeks. Lisa's routine became even more predictable in a strange way. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she would go out in the afternoon. She would dress nicely, but not too fancy. Simple, comfortable. Calm. She always said she was going to meet people at the park, but she never gave details, never said names, never invited Daniel to join, and Daniel never asked because trust was strong, or so he believed. One afternoon, Daniel came home earlier than usual. The house was quiet. Lisa wasn't there. He walked into the bedroom and noticed her handbag on the bed. Something about it felt slightly different. He didn't know why, but his attention was drawn to it. As he picked it up to move it aside, a small folded paper slipped out and fell on the floor. Daniel bent down and picked it up. It was a receipt. A café receipt. Not from their area. Not from their area. Not from anywhere they usually went. It was from a café across town, a place Daniel had never even heard Lisa mention before. He stared at it for a long moment. Just a simple piece of paper. But somehow it didn't feel simple. It felt heavy, like it carried a question he didn't want to ask. Why would Lisa go there? And who was she with? Daniel folded the receipt slowly and placed it back inside the bag. Then he sat on the edge of the bed in silence. His mind tried to explain it logically. Maybe she went there with friends. Maybe it was just a random stop. Maybe it meant nothing, but deep down, something didn't settle that night. Lisa came home later than usual. She looked calm, as always. She kissed Daniel on the cheek and asked about his day like nothing had changed. Daniel smiled back, but his smile felt different this time. Less natural, more forced, in sight. His thoughts were louder than ever. But he said nothing, because he didn't want to become someone who doubted his own wife without reason. Still, that night, he couldn't sleep properly. Lisa slept peacefully beside him, but Daniel stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking, questioning. Not her actions fully, but the feeling behind them. The next morning, everything looked normal again. Breakfast, coffee, routine. Lisa was cheerful. Daniel was quiet. She mentioned she might go to the park again later. Daniel just nodded, but this time, he noticed something different. The way she checked her phone before leaving. The way she smiled, slightly before stepping out. And the way she didn't look back once, as the door closed behind her. Daniel stood still in the kitchen. Silence filled the house, and for the first time, that silence felt unfamiliar. Something was changing, something he couldn't explain yet, and maybe didn't want to accept. Because once doubt enters a perfect life, it doesn't leave easily. It grows slowly, quietly, until it becomes impossible to ignore. Daniel looked at the empty doorway and took a slow breath. He told himself. Everything was fine, but deep inside, a question had already been born, and that question was about to change everything. After that night, Daniel tried to act normal. He went to work. He smiled when needed. He answered messages. He even joked with colleagues like nothing was wrong, but inside, something had shifted. It was small at first, just a thought, a question. But now it had become a pattern in his mind. Lisa's behavior replayed again and again. Her late returns, her phone always on silent. That strange smile when she read messages, and the cafe receipt, a place across town that she never mentioned. Daniel didn't want to become the kind of husband who spies or doubts without reason. But trust, once slightly shaken, never returns the same way. It changes shape, and Daniel could feel that change happening inside him. One evening, Lisa told him casually, "I'll be going out tomorrow again, just meeting the moms at the park." Her voice was calm. To calm. Daniel nodded, like he always did. But this time, he didn't respond immediately. He just watched her, trying to read something in her expression. But Lisa was good at hiding emotions too. Good. The next morning started like any other day. Lisa got ready, wore a simple yet elegant outfit, checked her phone, and smiled before leaving. "See you later," she said softly. The door closed behind her, and silence filled the house again. But this time, Daniel didn't sit still. Something inside him pushed him up. He walked to the window, watched her leave, and for the first time in 5 years of marriage, he made a decision he never thought he would make. He was going to follow her. He grabbed his jacket and keys. His heart was already beating faster than usual, not because he wanted to catch her, but because he needed truth. Even if it hurt, Daniel waited 10 minutes. Before leaving the house, he didn't want to make it obvious. When he reached his car, his hands were slightly shaken. He kept telling himself it was nothing, just a misunderstanding, just a normal day. But deep down, he knew this was not normal anymore. He drove slowly, carefully keeping distance. Lisa's car was ahead of him. She drove in a direction that immediately made him alert. It was not the direction of the park, not even close. Daniel's grip tightened on the steering wheel. His mind started racing. Where is she going? Why this route? She passed familiar streets, then moved toward the busier part of the city. Traffic increased. Daniel had to stay, careful not to lose her. After nearly 20 minutes, Lisa turned into a street Daniel didn't recognize. Small cafes, shops, quiet but busy atmosphere. She parked near a modern café with large glass windows. Daniel parked his car a little distance away. His heart was now pounding hard. This was it. He watched from inside his car as Lisa stepped out. She looked normal, relaxed, even happy. She adjusted her hair slightly and walked. Inside the café, Daniel stayed inside his car for a few seconds, just breathing, thinking. A part of him wanted to leave, to turn the car around, to forget everything, but another part of him needed to know the truth. He got out slowly, carefully, and walked toward the café. The closer he got, the heavier his chest felt. Through the large glass window, he could see inside. People. Sitting, talking, laughing. and then he saw her. Lisa. She was sitting at a corner table. But she wasn't alone. There was someone across from her. A man. Daniel paused. His steps stopped completely. His mind tried to process what he was seeing. Lisa smiled at him. Not the polite smile she gave strangers. Not the casual smile she gave friends. This was different, warmer, comfortable, familiar. The man across from her leaned slightly forward as they talked. Daniel didn't recognize him fully at first, but something about him felt familiar. Then it hit him. He was a single dad from the neighborhood. Mark. Daniel had seen him once or twice before. A quiet man, polite, recently separated. Someone who always had his child with him at the park. Daniel's heart sank slightly, but he still tried to convince himself. Maybe it's just a friendly meeting. Maybe it's about kids. Maybe it's harmless. But then he saw something that broke that thought. Immediately, Lisa laughed, and then she touched Mark's hand lightly, naturally, like it wasn't the first time. Like it was something normal between them. Daniel felt his stomach tighten, his breath slowed. His mind went silent for a moment. Inside that café, the world continued. Normally, people drank coffee. Waiters moved around. Soft music played. But for Daniel, everything had stopped. He was standing outside a glass wall, watching his life split into something he didn't recognize. His wife, sitting with another man, smiling, touching, comfortable. A truth he was not prepared for. Daniel stepped back slightly. His hand went to the wall for support. He didn't know what he was. Feeling anger, confusion, shock, or betrayal, maybe. All of it together. He wanted to walk in. He wanted answers, but his body didn't move. Because sometimes, truth doesn't just hurt, it freezes. Daniel stayed there for a long moment, watching, trying to understand, trying to find a logical explanation. But deep down, something had already started breaking. Slowly, quietly, irreversibly. And that moment, inside the café, was just the beginning of something much bigger. Daniel didn't move for a long time. He just stood outside the café, watching through the glass, like his body had forgotten how to react. Inside, Lisa and Mark were still talking, still smiling, still comfortable. But something inside Daniel had gone completely silent. Not peace, not acceptance, something heavier, like his emotions had been locked behind a door. He couldn't open anymore. Then, slowly, he stepped back. One step, then another. And without even realizing it, he turned away from the café. He didn't go inside. He didn't confront them. Not yet. Because in that moment, confrontation felt impossible. His mind wasn't ready. His heart wasn't ready. So, he did the only thing he could do. He went home. The drive back felt unreal. Every traffic light felt longer. Every second felt stretched. Lisa's smile kept replaying in his mind. That smile inside the café. Not the smile of guilt. Not the smile of confusion. But the smile of comfort. Like she belonged there. Like she had always belonged there. When Daniel reached home, the house felt different. Same walls, same furniture, same silence. But nothing felt familiar anymore. He sat on the couch and didn't move for a long time, just thinking, trying to understand what he had just seen. Then his eyes moved toward Lisa's handbag. The same bag, the same routine life. But now, everything. Inside, it felt suspicious. He didn't want to invade her privacy, but he also couldn't ignore reality anymore. Slowly, he opened it. At first, nothing unusual. Makeup, wallet, keys, but then he found something else. Another receipt. Same. CAFE. Acute. Different date. Daniel froze. He checked again. Another one. Then another. Different days. Weeks. Different months. His hands started shaking. Slightly. This wasn't a meeting. This wasn't accidental. This was repeated, regular, ongoing. A pattern. And that's when Daniel realized something that hit harder than anything else. This wasn't new. This wasn't recent. This had been going on for a long time, maybe months, maybe years. He sat back slowly. His mind started connecting pieces he had ignored before. Lisa's late nights, her sudden outings, her secrecy with her phone, her changing behavior, it all started forming a picture he didn't want to see. And yet, it was forming perfectly. The next day, Daniel didn't go to work. He called in sick. But he wasn't sick physically. He was somewhere else, mentally trying to find answers. He needed clarity, so he started digging. Carefully, quietly. He checked old bank statements, credit card records. Nothing obvious at first. But then he noticed small transactions. Coffee shops. Parking charges. Same area, same location, always that side of town. The café district, the same place. He had seen her yesterday. Daniel leaned back in his chair. His chest felt tight. Because now it wasn't just suspicion, it was evidence. But still, one question remained. Who was Mark to her? That evening, when Lisa came home, she acted normal, smiling. Calm, like nothing had happened. She asked him about his day. She cooked dinner. She laughed softly at something on TV. But Daniel was different now. He was watching for not with love, not with trust, but with awareness. And Lisa didn't notice. Or maybe she did, but chose not to show it that night. After she slept, Daniel stayed awake. He stared at the ceiling, thinking. Replaying everything. And then something inside him snapped. Not in anger, but in decision. He needed proof. Real proof. Not feelings, not guesses. Truth. The next morning, he started planning. He checked Lisa's routine carefully. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Same pattern, same excuse. The park, he decided he would follow her again. But this time, he wouldn't stop outside. This time, he would go all the way. When Tuesday came, everything repeated. Lisa got ready, smiled, left the house. Daniel waited, then followed her again. Same route, same streets, same destination, the café. But this time, Daniel didn't park far away. He parked closer. He watched carefully as Lisa entered. Then he waited 10 minutes, then 15. Then he walked inside. The café was warm, full of soft voices, coffee, aroma. Normal life. But Daniel's world wasn't normal anymore. He scanned the room. And saw them again. Lisa and Mark. Same table, same comfort. But this time, Daniel didn't stop outside. He walked slowly, step by step, until he stood just a few feet away. Lisa looked up, and for a split second, everything froze. Her expression changed. Not fear, not panic, just realization. Mark turned his head and saw Daniel too. The air between them became heavy instantly. No one spoke. The cafe noise continued, but their table felt like another world. Daniel finally broke the silence. His voice was low. Controlled but broken underneath. Lisa looked down. No answer. Daniel repeated, "How long has this been going on?" Mark looked away. Lisa's hands tightened together, and then Daniel said the words he had been holding inside for days. 2 years. Lisa didn't deny it immediately. And that silence answered everything. Daniel felt something collapse inside him. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like something giving up. He stepped back slowly, because now he didn't need more proof. He had the truth, and it was worse than anything he imagined. And in that moment, Daniel realized something painful. He didn't lose Lisa. That day, he had been losing her for 2 years, without even knowing it. The cafe felt different now. Same chairs, same lights, same people talking quietly around them. But for Daniel, nothing existed outside that table anymore. It was just the three of them. Lisa, Mark, and the truth he had been avoiding for too long. Daniel stood there for a few seconds without speaking, not because he didn't know what to say, but because everything he wanted to say felt too heavy to come out at once. Lisa looked at him, then quickly looked away again. Single glance told Daniel everything. Guilt, fear, and something worse. Acceptance. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but stayed silent. He knew this wasn't his moment yet. This was between husband and wife. Daniel finally spoke. His voice was calm, too. Calm. How long has this been going on? Lisa didn't answer immediately. She stared at the table, like it had the answers for her. That silence lasted longer than words ever could. Daniel nodded slowly. Then he repeated himself. Asked you a question. Lisa took a shaky breath, and finally whispered, It just happened. I didn't plan it. Daniel gave a small, bitter smile. 2 years just happened. Lisa's eyes filled instantly. But Daniel wasn't finished. He pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. Photos, receipts, bank records, café visits. All the pieces he had collected without her knowing, one by one. He slid them forward. You want to tell me this all just happened to... Lisa covered her face with her hands, and for the first time, she looked broken. Not strong, not confident, just human. Mark finally spoke. Daniel, it's not what you think. Daniel turned his head slowly and looked at him. Just a look, but it stopped him immediately. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I don't think anything anymore, he said quietly. I already know. The cafe around them was still normal. People drinking coffee, phones ringing softly, but at their table, reality had cracked open. Lisa stood up suddenly. I didn't want to hurt you, she said quickly. I swear I didn't. Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then asked the question that had been burning inside him since day one. Then why him? Lisa froze. That question hit. Deeper than anger, because it wasn't about cheating, it was about choice. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then whispered, It started as friendship. Daniel interrupted instantly, and ended as 2 years of lies. Her eyes dropped again. She couldn't answer, because there was no answer that would fix it. Daniel leaned slightly forward, his voice lowered. Do you love him? The entire cafe felt like it disappeared in that moment. Lisa didn't answer immediately. That pause again. That same pause that destroys everything. Without saying a word, Mark looked down. Even he knew what that silence meant. Lisa finally whispered, and that was it. That was the final crack. Daniel leaned back slowly, like something inside him had just given up. Not anger, not rage, just exhaustion. He had expected denial. He had expected excuses, but not confusion, not uncertainty, because confusion means the heart is already somewhere else. Daniel nodded slowly. 2 years, he said quietly, and you still don't know. Lisa reached out slightly. Daniel, please. But he stepped back, immediately. No shouting, no drama, just distance. I trusted you, he said. His voice cracked slightly on that word. Trusted. Lisa started crying. Now, real tears. Not excuses, not manipulation, just regret. But it was too late. Daniel looked at Mark again. This is what you were doing with my wife. Mark tried to speak, but Daniel raised his hand slightly. No, don't explain. A pause. Then Daniel added, I don't want your version of the story. The silence after that was heavier than anything. Before Lisa wiped her face quickly. I never meant for this to happen, she said again. Daniel looked at her one last time, and something in his expression changed. Not anger, not sadness, acceptance. I believe you, he said softly. Lisa looked up quickly, hope flashing for a second, but Daniel continued. I believe you didn't mean for it to happen. Then he paused, and that's the worst part, because mistakes can be forgiven, but patterns cannot. He picked up his phone slowly and placed it back in his pocket. Then he looked at Lisa, not as a husband anymore, but as someone closing a chapter. I'm done. 3 words. Simple. Final. Lisa shook her head. No, Daniel, please. But he was already stepping back. I can't compete with something you chose for 2 years. That line hit harder than anything else, because it wasn't anger, it was truth. Mark stood up slightly. Daniel, maybe we should talk. Daniel interrupted again. No, just that. 1 word, enough. He turned slightly toward the exit, then stopped. Without looking back, he said, I hope you both get what you were looking for. And then he walked out. No shouting behind him, no dramatic scene, just silence. Outside the café, the air felt colder, but somehow clearer. Daniel stood there for a moment, then took a deep breath. Not because he was okay, but because something inside him had ended. And endings, even painful ones, bring clarity. Behind him, inside the café, Lisa broke down completely, but Daniel didn't turn around, because sometimes the hardest part of love is not losing someone. It's accepting that they left long before you knew, and this time, Daniel finally let go. Daniel didn't remember driving home that day. It felt automatic, like his body knew the route, but his mind wasn't present anymore. Everything felt distant. The roads, the lights, even the sound of the engine. When he finally reached home, he didn't rush inside. He sat in the car for a long time, just staring at the house, the place that once felt like comfort. Now, it felt like a reminder of everything that had ended, of everything that had been a lie. Inside that house, he had believed in a future, a family, a life built on trust. But now, it all felt like a story he had once read, but no longer belonged to. When Daniel finally stepped inside, the silence hit him first. No Lisa, no sound of cooking, no soft voice calling his name, just emptiness. He walked slowly through the rooms. Every corner held a memory. Every object felt heavier than before. He sat on the couch and didn't move for hours. Not crying, not reacting, just thinking, because sometimes pain doesn't explode. It freezes you instead. That night, Lisa didn't come home. Not that Daniel expected her to, and strangely, he didn't feel anger anymore. It was something different. Distance, like she had already become part of another world. Over the next few days, Daniel stopped answering calls, stopped checking messages, stopped pretending everything was normal. Work noticed. Friends noticed, but no one really understood what had happened inside him. Only Daniel knew, and Lisa. But Lisa didn't call anymore. After a while, the silence between them became permanent. Days turned into weeks. Daniel started living differently. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. He began waking up earlier, going for long walks, sitting in cafes alone. Not the one from before, somewhere new, somewhere without memories. At first, it felt strange, being alone, but slowly, something changed. The pain didn't disappear, but it stopped controlling him. He started rebuilding himself, piece by piece, not for revenge, not for her, but for himself. He changed his routine, started exercising, focused on work again. His colleagues noticed the difference. He was quieter, but sharper, calmer. Like something inside him had been broken and rebuilt stronger. But life wasn't done with him yet. One evening, about a month later, Daniel received a message from an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him open it. The message was short, just a location and a time. Nothing else, no name, no explanation. Normally, he would have ignored it, but something about it felt familiar, like unfinished business. Against his better judgment, he went. The location was a small cafe, not the old one. A different place, quieter, almost empty. When Daniel walked in, he saw her immediately. Lisa, she looked different, not the same confident woman he once knew. Her hair was tied back loosely. Her face looked tired, less polished, more real. She saw him and stood up, slowly. Neither of them smiled. Neither of them spoke at first. Then Lisa said softly, "Thank you for coming." Daniel didn't sit down immediately. He just looked at her, waiting. She took a deep breath. "I didn't call you to restart anything," she said quickly. "I just needed to say something." Daniel stayed silent. Lisa looked down for a moment, then continued. "I left him." That sentence hung in the air, but Daniel didn't react. Not shock, not satisfaction, nothing. Lisa noticed that and it hurt her more than anger would have. "I thought I was confused," she said. "I thought I was feeling something real, but I wasn't." Daniel finally spoke, his voice calm. "What changed?" Lisa swallowed. Reality. A pause. Then she added quietly, "He wasn't what I imagined, and neither was I." Daniel nodded slightly, but still didn't sit. Lisa's eyes filled again. "I ruined everything, didn't I?" Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Not with hatred, not with love, just understanding. "You didn't ruin it," he said softly. "You chose it." That line hit her harder than anything else, because it removed excuses, removed confusion, removed denial. Lisa sat down slowly. "I don't expect forgiveness," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "That's good." Silence again, but this time it wasn't heavy, it was final. Lisa wiped her face. "I just wanted you to know, I regret it." Daniel listened, but his expression didn't change. Then he said something that surprised even himself. "Regret doesn't fix what was broken." Lisa nodded. She already knew, after a few seconds. Daniel finally sat down. Not because things were changing, but because closure sometimes needs presence. Not reconciliation, just acceptance. They sat in silence for a moment. Two people who once shared a life now sharing only truth. Then Daniel stood up again. "I hope you figure yourself out," he said, quietly. Lisa looked up quickly. Daniel, but he had already turned slightly. Then he paused and added one last line. "I already figured mine out." And with that, he walked out. No turning back, no hesitation. Outside, the air felt lighter than before. Not because everything was perfect, but because he was no longer trapped in confusion. And that was freedom. Months later, Daniel's life looked different again. Not because he became someone else, but because he became himself again. Stronger, calmer, more focused. He traveled, met new people, built new routines. The past still existed in memory, but not in control. One evening, while sitting near a quiet riverside, Daniel received another message. This one wasn't from Lisa, it was from Mark. Daniel almost didn't open it, but he did. The message was simple. "I should have never crossed that line. I lost everything." Daniel stared at it for a long time, then closed his phone. No reply, no reaction, because some stories don't need closure in words. They end in silence. And then came the final twist. A few weeks later, Daniel learned something, unexpectedly. Lisa had left the city. Completely. No new relationship. No fresh start with Mark. Nothing, just gone. And Mark, too, had moved away shortly after. What they built in secrecy couldn't survive reality. And Daniel realized something important. Sometimes betrayal feels like destruction. But in reality, it removes what was already unstable and gives you space to rebuild something real. The last scene wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It wasn't heartbreak. It was peace. Daniel sitting alone, watching the river flow. No questions left. No confusion left. Just life moving forward. Because, in the end, the loudest revenge is not destruction. It's becoming the version of yourself they can never reach again.